Everyone, I hope this video finds you doing well. Mr. Becky and I talked about what we needed to cover for the rest of the semester and what you need for future classes, and we decided to bump Unit 11 up because it's most useful for everybody. And then Unit 9 and Unit 10 are most necessary for students who are taking BC Calculus next year. Keep in mind when you're doing this, we just want you to be comfortable with this, familiar with it. It's great for algebra review, but we're not so focused on getting 2s and 3s unless you want to get a 3 to improve your grade. So we're going to go ahead and talk about conic sections in this unit. And the first conic section we're going to talk about today is circles, but just a little basic background. Conics are formed by taking two cones stacked on top of each other. They call it double naped. So the vertex or the tip of the cone is stacked, and they cut those cones with a plane. So there are four basic conic sections. You have a circle, you have an ellipse, you have a parabola, and you have a hyperbola. And then there are what they call degenerate conics, and you'll see those in the last three figures. So if the plane goes through the vertex, then you can end up with intersecting lines, a single line, or a single point, depending on how that goes through. We aren't going to focus on those in this unit, but in the 3.0 option, there is conversation to actually extend into a 4.0 and look into degenerate conics and oblique conics. So this general form of conic sections is ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared plus dx plus e plus f equals 0. There's a whole lot there. In this unit, we're not going to worry about the ones when there's a bxy. So a lot of times, or actually when we use this form, you're going to not have to worry about this part right here. That's what actually would make that an oblique conic. So that, again, is a 4.0 if you want to look into that. This form doesn't tell you a lot about conic sections, so we will actually focus on putting most of them into standard form. But a lot of times you'll be given a general form to start with and have to change it around. So we're going to focus on two things in this. Given the information, you need to find the equation, or given the equation, you need to find the information and graph it. You do need to complete the square, which we talked about early in the year. We will review that quite a bit here in this unit. So moving on, let's focus on circles. The circle is the simplest conic. It's all the set of all points that are the same distance from a point not on the circle, which is called the center, and then the distance is called the radius. So that should be pretty familiar to you. Standard form of the circle you might have seen in geometry is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where the center of the circle is the point hk and the radius is r. Similar to our polynomials, when you're finding the values of h and k, remember your sign changes. So if it's x plus 4, the center is actually negative 4. And then don't forget to take the square root for your radius. Okay. So first, you're going to have to find the equation of the circle in, I'm actually going to focus on standard form. I think a lot of your directions say general form, so I'm going to show you how to put it in general form for a couple of them. But we're going to actually just plug this into standard form and leave it. So I'm going to focus here on standard. You can change that. So standard form, this is h, this is k. So we're going to do the quantity x minus 0 squared plus the quantity y minus 0 squared equals the radius squared, or 4 squared. And then I can simplify that. I have x squared plus y squared equals 16. Okay, so that is pretty simple. My pen is going crazy here. Let me fix that. Still going crazy. Okay, let's try now. There we go. Equals 16. So this is a standard form of the circle. To put it in general form, all we would do is move the 16 over. So general form has an equals 0 there. Again, you don't have to do that step in your work. It does say general form, I think, in a lot of the instructions, but we just want to focus on making sure you're comfortable with standard form. Okay, so next one, h, k, and r. So I'm going to do x minus negative 2, which becomes x plus 2, quantity squared, plus the quantity y minus 3 squared equals 8 squared. So in standard form, we have x plus 2 quantity squared, y minus 3 quantity squared equals 64. And if you are going to change this to general form, let me go here, you're actually going to multiply this out. So if I square this here, I get x squared plus 4x plus 4. And if I square that second group, I get y squared minus 6y plus 9. And then I'm going to subtract 64. We're going to combine like terms. Okay, so in general form, we have x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 6y minus 51 equals 0. Again, this is not required, but this is general form. Okay, multiplying it all out. Last one, I'm going to let you do on your own. Just leave the fraction. Don't worry about it. So plug that in, hit pause, plug it in, see what you get, and then check back here in a couple seconds. Okay, and you should have x minus 1/2 quantity squared plus y plus 1/4 quantity squared equals 1 squared, which is just 1. So there's your final answer. Okay, next one, find the equation of the circle in general form. And actually, again, we're going to focus on standard form, and I'm not even going to change these. So let's go ahead and change that. Okay, so when we plug this in, we have x minus, before we can do that, we need to find our radius. So we need to find the distance between the center and the point on the circle. So our distance formula is going to be x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. So we get the square root of -3 squared plus 1 squared, which gives us the square root of 10. So this is going to be our radius. So when we plug this in using the center and the radius, we get x minus -1 quantity squared plus y minus 4 quantity squared, and then the square root of 10 squared actually just gives us 10. And we're done there. Okay. For our diameter endpoints, we need to do the same thing. We need to find our diameter. So we're going to do x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Sorry, or I think I said that backwards, y1 minus y2 squared. So I get the square root of -4 squared, which is 16, and 12 squared, which is 144. So I get the square root of 160, right? Okay, if I break that down, 16, the square root of 16 is 4 square root of 10. Now remember, this is your diameter because I give you diameter endpoints. So our radius is going to be that divided by 2. So we have 2 square root of 10 there for our radius. And then we also need to find our midpoint because our center is going to be at the midpoint. So I'm going to do -1 plus 3 divided by 2. And I'm going to do 4 plus -8 divided by 2, which gives me 1 and -2 for my center. So if I plug this in, I get x minus 1 quantity squared plus y minus -2, or y plus 2 quantity squared. And then I'm going to do 2 square root of 10 squared. Okay. So if I simplify that, I have x minus 1 quantity squared, y plus 2 quantity squared. 2 squared is 4, square root of 10 squared is 10. So 4 times 10 is 40. And you can stop there. I'm going to skip this problem and I'm going to come back to it. This isn't really essential, but I am going to show you for those of you who'd like to review some systems when you do this. Let's look at the last part, and this is where completing the square comes in super handy. We need to put this in a standard form so that we can find the center and radius. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to regroup this. We're going to do x squared plus 10x, and I'm going to figure out what I need to do to complete the square there. And then I'm going to group this as y squared minus 6y, and I figure out what I need to do there, equals, and I'm going to move this 4 over. So I have a -4. And whatever I add on the left side, I need to add on the right side. Okay? So I'm going to put 2 blanks there as well. Okay? To complete the square, I'm going to take half of 10, which is 5, and 5 squared is 25. So I'm going to add that to both sides there. And then I'm going to take half of -6, which is -3, and square it to get +9, and I'm going to add 9 to both sides. What that does is it allows me to factor this using a perfect square trinomial. So the two numbers that multiply to give me 25 and add up to 10 are 5 and 5, so I really have x plus 5 squared here. And the numbers that multiply to give me 9 and add up to -6 are -3 and -3, so I have y minus 3 squared there. And if I combine everything together on the right side, 25 plus 9 is 34. And -4 gives me 30. Okay. What that does is it allows me to find my center, which is at -5, +3, and my radius, which is the square root of 30. And I can't break that down at all. Okay. I want you to try B, and then hit pause. And when you come back, I will have the answer up there so you can check it. Actually, I'll show all the steps as well. But go ahead and hit pause and try this on your own and see what you can do from there. Okay, when you come back, you can see that I have this set up and I need to go ahead and go from here. The problem is when I do this, I get a fraction. So -7 divided by 2 is actually -7/2. But if I square that, I get 49/4. So I'm going to add 49/4 on both sides. Okay, and 3 divided by 2 is 3/2. When I square it, I get 9/4. So I'm going to add that to both sides. Okay, so now when I factor this, I'm going to get x minus 7/2 quantity squared plus y plus 3/2 quantity squared. And then when I combine everything on the right side together using the fractions, I actually get a 45/2. So my center is at 7/2, -3/2, and my radius is going to be the square root of 45/2, which is 3 square root of 5 over the square root of 2, which gives me 3 square root of 10/2. Okay, last one. Before we can do anything, we actually need to get rid of our coefficients here. Circles usually don't have anything in there, and I cannot complete the square if there's something in front of my squared term. So I'm going to divide everything here by 4 to get x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 1/4 equals 0. So you have x squared plus 4x plus something plus y squared, which I don't need to do anything with, equals 1/4 plus that same thing. So half of 4 squared is 4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And I'm going to go ahead and factor this, so I get x plus 2 quantity squared. My y squared is on its own because there wasn't another term there. And then when I add those together, I get 17/4. So I can find that my center is at -2, 0, and my radius is at the square root of 17/4, which simplifies to the square root of 17/2. So that is what you're doing today. Again, I think the directions say general form. Just put it in standard form. You're good. If you want to practice multiplying stuff out, you can do that. Reach out if you have any questions. I apologize for the long video today, but there are a lot of examples. So let me know if you have questions. You're good. Check out the next video to see that problem I skipped, and have a great day.